We should be good to go. Huh? There we go. Hello. How is everybody doing? How's things? How's your week been? How's life, the universe, and everything? Hello to Tom. First in. Also on YouTube, hello to Simon. Hello to Ask Search Knock. Nice. Just moved from London to Brizzy. Nice. You might know Simon. And hello to Chris. How you doing, man? How's things? Evening. Where are we at? What am I doing? I don't know. That one? Okay. Right. I think we're good. Well, hello. Is the music working? And it doesn't look like it. Or is it just a quiet bit of the music? Let's find out. Is the music working? So I'm not seeing it come up. So as it's playing, I'm seeing little bits. Hello, Adam. How's things? Okay, I can see the music sort of dancing around. Can you actually hear it, or what? Hello, Mustafa. How you doing? I'm okay. I've had a both busy and quiet day at the same time. Which kind of usual. I'm benchmarking a PC at the moment, from Sir Chris in the chat, and yeah, I've had a lot on my my calendar this week. There's a lot going on. So yeah. Okay, doing alright. I really need a new gaming chair. I was playing, is that ROTTB? I can't think of what that stands for, but fair enough. My back is messed up more than usual. Nice. ROTTR? In that case, that makes sense. Fair enough. I do have a brand that I recommend, and I do have an affiliate link for. But yeah, fair. It kind of depends how much you're willing to spend. Can't say I can hear any music. Wait, you use a physical calendar? I salute you. I do. I can. British system broke. No, it's fine. Yeah, I use this because I can't remember anything. So I have every single thing that's going on, like collections and purchasing decisions and individual bits of videos and things. So yeah, I've even planned out a bit of next week too. I'm big. I'm also a fan. Nice. Could you tell me the best keyboard I could get if my budget is under £150? So keyboards are a very personal preference type of device. For me personally, my Cooler Master Master Keys Pro L, which you will not be able to buy today unless you buy it used, with the original pre-patent lift Cherry MX brown switches. This is my sort of perfect keyboard. I don't need anything fancy. I use a Razer wrist rest that is falling apart, and so I could probably do with a better wrist rest or a just newer one, but it's fine. With that said, some people prefer things like the Wu-Tang boards, which use optical switches instead, which actually have some really cool features behind them. You can do things like having multiple key presses per sort of keystroke, which is really cool. You can also do things like adjusting the actuation height, so you can be feather light for gaming, but hammer typing for, well, typing. So there are a wide variety of options, feels, and also when you start going into the more custom market, you're not going to be paying 150, but there is a whole world of customization there as well, which I will be slightly diving into in a future video. But either way, off the top of my head, for that kind of money, the Wu-Tang boards probably stands out as the out-and-out best that I would personally use. Otherwise, again, it kind of depends what you want. There's such a wide variety. There's the Keychron K2, which is a 65%, 70%, something like that, a fairly small keyboard. That I think is wireless as well, if I remember. Probably. And of course, there are the more gaming brand options, but they tend to be just about as good quality as anything you buy on Amazon for half the price. So, yeah, it depends what you depends what you're after, I'm afraid. Question I've been wondering about: would you set a fan curve based on CPU temp or radiator? The former seems normal, but the latter seems more intuitive. Seems a boring thing to think about. That's a pretty fair question. So, generally speaking, while setting your temp based on a temperature probe in your radiator, which not many people would inherently have, but if you have one of those, technically speaking, I can see what you're going for there. Practically speaking, the objective of you having fans and radiators is to cool those components, and so using the fan curves and potentially even pump speeds, having all of those based on the heat source you are trying to soak or sink away, generally makes more sense, because you may then run into potential issues with having it run. The fans won't run up, or potentially the pump won't run fast enough, for example, to keep up with the CPU, and if it's not flowing fast enough, or it's just heat soaking towards the pump, then you could have it heat soaking. You wouldn't see that temperature change in the radiator temperature sensor, but the CPU would be feeling a temperature increase. So personally, I would care more about the heat generation source that you're trying to keep cool, more than what would be a more abstract measurement. What are the specs of your own personal rig? I include most of it in the description, although I kind of need to upgrade it. I've got a 3900X in there at the moment from AMD Ryzen. I have 64 gigs of 3200 MHz DDR4. I have an RTX 2080 at the moment, an ASUS 10 gig networking card, as well as a Gigabyte X570 Master motherboard. I have a WD SN700 1TB as my boot drive, a Patriot Viper VP4100 as my editing cache drive, and a Sabrent Rocket Q 4TB as my games drive. So in that case, you're looking for a brown style switch. They have a tactile bump, but they don't have an audible click, whereas a blue style switch has an audible click and a tactile bump. So if you want something quieter, then get a brown style switch. You get that tactile click at the actuation point, but no audible click from the switch themselves, just the standard clack of the keyboard. I upgraded to a B550 5800X. Is it worth overclocking or leaving it alone? So if you want to try and overclock a Ryzen CPU right now, generally speaking, the using a tool like Clock Tuner for Ryzen CTR is probably your best way to go, because Ryzen chips generally are pretty close to their limits out of the factory. So just by doing a basic setting the multiplier, you're potentially going to get worse performance than you would if you go go for that instead. But with something like clock tuning for Ryzen, you can get a bit better performance out of your chip, or potentially even just an underclock at the same performance. So worth checking out. What do you think about a Ryzen 5 3600 with a GTX 1650, 64 gigs of RAM for workstation light gaming? Also 500 gig Samsung Evo, 1 terabyte gigabytes M.2 drive, and 6 gigabyte SSDs. 6 gigabyte SSDs. Interesting. So as a workstation, I would probably. Depends what your work is, right? Like if your work is standard office workloads, then that's perfectly fine. If you do more video editing, photo editing, 3D modeling, game development, scientific, etc., then I would probably put a preference on having a faster CPU than that. Obviously, it depends on the balance of how much you're gaming versus work and all that, but I'm sure it's fine. Obviously, as with all of my general recommendations for hardware, it's based on if you actually notice a problem, right? So if you, this is the answer that I normally get for or give for gaming PC upgrades, but if you're noticing significant FPS drops in games, or you have to turn the settings down but you want more, then yes, go ahead and upgrade parts. But if you're not feeling an actual impact in your game, then it's probably not worth upgrading just yet. So you do website building, web dev. Nice, me too. So in that case, it's probably fine. Depending on how big your applications are, how many node modules you use, you might want a slightly faster CPU in a 3800X or 5800X if you got the money, for those sweet compile times. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to be plenty fine. And that is a lot of storage. I hope you're not running any web servers off of that. And yes, Mustafa asks, Search Knock has a very good answer, which isn't in the chat anymore. You can order a test pad, which I don't have one to hand, but it's a little normally 3x3 grid of different switches that you can press around on and try them out. Yeah, they're nice and good to understand the different switch styles. Nice one, Mustafa. That's awesome. Have you tried the M1 Mac out yet? I really wanted to be cynical, but it's great. So I did a video on it probably a couple months ago now. So from someone who does not own an Apple device at all, the M1 Mac doesn't speak to me on a usability basis, something that I would ever really want to use. From the M1 chip itself, it's definitely an interesting chip. I mean, straight up performance per watt is absolutely insane. You're talking about matching or beating even Ryzen chips, like Ryzen desktop chips, with like 30 watts of total system power draw instead of 80 watts just for the CPU package power. So that in and of itself is fantastic and really interesting. I think that it's definitely currently a niche use case. Obviously, it's only available on Mac, so there's that. But from it's recently in my memory, as Linus did a video a couple hours ago on the M1 Mac Mini that now has 10 gig Ethernet, which is actually really cool. I like that a lot. But the revelation for me in that video was him talking about the PCIe layout. So I think he said that it has 2 PCIe Gen 4 lanes to the Thunderbolt controller, 1 to this new 10 gig controller, and then 1 to the USB ports and Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. But that's it. That's all the PCIe connectivity it has. And while that is Gen 4, that only accounts for 8 PCI Gen 3 lanes, and all of those 8 PCI Gen 3 lanes is about how much you would need for a dedicated graphics card, which means the next version, the M1X or the M2 or whatever else that comes in MacBook Pros, if they are going to have a dedicated graphics chip, they're going to need to potentially double the PCIe controller on board, which I'm sure is well within their purview to do, but it's probably going to push the boat back a bit. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, it's not something that I would use personally, so I am removed from I'm not the target market, I'm not the target demographic, so it makes it a bit more difficult for me to be excited about it. But it's definitely interesting for me. Would you do a video on the M1 iPad Pro? So again, probably not. I don't own any Apple devices. Apple will certainly not send me one. So the answer is probably not no, unless one fell into my lap, in which case, yes, and then I would give it back to whoever put it in my lap. And also, sorry I didn't mention, fair play to them on the Noble Tray front. They're not the cheapest. I think it's the balance of how much do you want to spend for comfort and health and your versus not spending an insane amount of money. So it's an understandable position. I am very privileged in having multiple of these, but yeah, I get it. I can say that it does last. They do last very well. Both my Icon that I sat in for a year or 2 years straight every day, and my Hero that I've been sitting in for another year or 2 straight, show basically no signs of wear at all. Not quite. Hello Spencer, how you doing, man? How's things? Mustafa, today I realised I was using my 144Hz monitor at 60Hz for a whole week. Yeah, now is a very good time to check both your monitor's refresh rates and what speed your RAM is running at. You should do that now. Sit in it for a year or 2 every day. Yes, I do not leave this desk except to go sit in that desk or the one that's upstairs, and occasionally go to the gym and drive cars and mountain bike and fix cars. But other than that, it's right here. I'm okay, still not at work 5 days a week yet, but getting there. How about you? I'm okay, mostly. Oh yes, that's the wording, yeah. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm both busy and not busy. It's a weird balance, and I don't like it. But yeah, that's getting on. And I did a car review. I'm officially a car reviewer. What would you say is a reasonable price range to look at? So the Nitro Concepts S300X, I think it is basically the same chair, but with a less nice tilt mechanism than a Noble chair. I think it's what do they call them? Noble Chairs is a parent company to well, they're Case King brand. Anyway, one of those I think is like 200 instead of 3 or 4. So probably that. Um, Hello, yet another user. How you doing, man? How's things? Um, I watched your Intel chip review the other day. Was a compelling proposition given the shortage. Uh, so that's true. I would mention that in the on the CPU side of things, the 5600X, the last time I checked, is in stock in most places. So if that was if stock of that chip would be the sole reason you buy the 11400F instead, then that's alleviated now. If you were going to buy the 11400F because it's a cheaper platform with currently much better value proposition, then fair play, yeah. Although I think you still have, if you've got a B450 board, you can just upgrade your BIOS and that will work, yeah. What was the chair? It was a Nitro Concepts S300X, I think. The S300 range is the S300 is the pleather one, and I think the S300X is the what you call it, fabric one, which I kind of prefer in that class of chair, but yeah. Thanks, man. I will. I'll be honest. I post the videos on the website, and that's kind of about it. But I will. I'll remember to set that up. I've only just set up a DKIM keys for. Thank you very much, Stephen. For my email, so that's I'm slow to do things. Have you seen Der Bauer's video delving into Chia mining? I haven't, but I was hoping that someone would explain it to me, so I guess I will go check that out after the stream. Yeah. Something. Saw some storage questions in the chat. Quick tip: if you get a Seagate expansion desktop, 16 terabyte from Amazon, and open it up, it's got the Exos drive inside that's 2x the price of the expansion drive. Interesting. That's kind of weird. I would potentially caution against that as a guaranteed fit, because it's the one of the benefits of them selling those external drives is that they can put anything in there that's surplus inventory. So in that batch, they would what you call it? In that batch, they will have used those Exos drives, but potentially in the next batch, potentially even the next day, they might be using the archive drives, which are Shingo magnetic recording SMR drives instead. So yeah, fair. Chia's rising the terabytes written lifetime of the SSDs to create plots, and the network flooded, so not many people getting coins. Right. I'll watch the video, that might explain it a bit more. Currently not comprehending too well. Trying to decide between a living room PC, a small form factor PC, or a console. Fair. I would argue the PC is a bit more versatile, but console is also a pretty good experience, and would be a bit more seamless for a living room experience. So yeah, probably a fair question. Should I wait until GPU prices go down or buy a new laptop? Laptop, like, GPU prices probably won't be going down for another 6 to 12 to 24 months. So unless Elon can start really hammering the price of Bitcoin down again, we're probably not going to see mining profitability drop enough to cease that demand. And then yeah, it's knock-on effects. So yeah, that laptop is probably a better shout right now. Can you explain why the 11th gen i9 performed a bit worse than the 10th gen in some tests? So the i9, that's pretty simple. The i9 has 2 less cores and 4 less threads than the 10th gen i9. And while it does have new boost patterns, it's still the same thing. Apparently Twitch stream's frozen. Looks good on YouTube. Try refreshing. But yeah, it's got 2 less cores, 4 less threads, and while the new i9 does have better boost patterns and better IPC instruction per clock figures, it's not. That still doesn't account for 2 less cores. And 50% more power draw. What do you think of a concept of an EV minibus like the Mercedes Vito? I think that's like VW with their whatever it was ID bus concept. Those will come eventually. It's also a great option because you generally get a lot of floor space. You get plenty of vertical room. Like with the Zoe, it was a bit kind of awkward being that tall. You sit taller than you sit in a Fiat 500, for example. But with that sort of minibus style, you're already taller anyway. So adding, that is fine. And then, on top of that, you have generally fairly long wheelbases, so you can have a lot of battery space in there. So yeah, it's just going to be hella expensive. Overclockers is selling a 3800 XT for £10 less than the 3700X. Interesting. Sony estimates the PS5 shortages to the end of 2022. Again, that sounds about right, yeah. Unfortunately. Is it me or does Andy's office look tidier than normal? I've tidied, yes. I do have a tripod lying there, and that is my index, Valve index cable, and that is the screen capture thing from when I was recording a BIOS. But yes, I have tidied. There is not crap on the floor anymore. I've even tidied over here. Yeah, magic. The 3700X has the same single-threaded scores as an 11100. Does it? Doesn't quite sound right to me, but fair enough. And you do obviously get significantly more cores and threads, actually. Hello, Michael. How you doing, man? What are the extra characters in the URL which don't do anything? Characters that can be removed from the URL, but page still loads. So there are a number of things that we could be talking about there. Generally speaking, if you're talking about something on where you share a web page and then it has lots of stuff behind it, if you're talking about especially like eBay web links, they're awful. But the long story short is that's normally some form of tracking information or analytics for the website owner in that case. There can be other things. So when you load a page on Amazon, right, you can either load Amazon.whatever, say .co.uk slash, I think it's just DP slash and then the ASIN, and that's it. That's all you need. But if you click on a product on Amazon, it will do slash product slash DP slash, or actually it will do slash the entire damn title of the product slash DP slash ASIN, and then it will often do question marks and then things like referrer, where you clicked from, what your search query was when you clicked when you search for that item, so that it will still preload your search bar with that stuff, what category you're searching in. There's so much stuff that gets added to those URLs. They're disgustingly long. From a web developer point of view, they can be used for if you want to do GET requests and things, to swap around or to provide data to search. Again, that's something like WordPress does quite a lot, actually. But yeah, long story short, if you can remove it, it's generally some sort of tracking or analytics or, as Spencer says, tokens, that kind of thing. It's not always necessary. Going with Passmark, the Ryzen is 50 points more in single thread. True, although it depends on what your task is, and so if it's a purely single thread task, then sure. But if it is something like gaming, where you do benefit from faster single threaded, but you get you can have benefits of having more cores available. There's trade-offs to be made, and looking at a single figure is not necessarily always a representative measure. What do you think about buying a second-hand? I assume that's second-hand car over 15. Can you clarify that is second-hand? Then I can answer your question. For example, if I save a URL on my computer, can I write code which automatically gets rid of extra characters? You probably could. I mean, it depends on what the URL you're saving is, how you're saving it, and why you would bother saving it, and or saving it and removing characters. And it can depend on the website. Some websites put everything into those sorts of extra characters, and some websites, wouldn't bother. But yeah, you certainly could. Whether it would matter enough for you to bother is probably not. It is a good measure as it levels the playing field for core score. Yes, again, if you're just comparing effectively theoretical performance between processors, then yes, that it is a good score. It's the reason why I quote those measures as well. From a real world perspective, it varies a lot more, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, second-hand car over 15,000. Got you. So I bought mine for 16. So yes, I think it depends on the vehicle, what sort of age, mileage, that kind of thing, and how much you're willing to spend time under it. But yeah. Yes, it depends on the vehicle, I think is the answer. Can't like the new Intel laptops. Laptop chips may be good. Right, yes, Intel launched new laptop CPUs. I was on a press call with them a while ago now. Them talking through it. I was also on a press call with ASUS because they've done a number of new models. But yes, so I haven't had my hands on any of them yet, so I can't give you any performance comparisons. They do look interesting. My reservation would be power consumption versus performance. They can quote, whatever clock speed they like, obviously, but when it's based on the same architecture as their desktop chips, and as we have seen, those are not necessarily the most efficient. Even the 11400F still draws 80 something watts. Did I keep that number? Or did I delete it? Oh, it's 130 watts. Right. Yeah. Cool. So for a lowly 6-core chip, that is obviously much more than a lot of laptops. If I remember rightly, Ryan Shrout, formerly of PC Perspective, said that the new 11980HK, which is the top end one, which is going to be in the thicker machines, I think has a top PL2 of 130 or 135 watts. So it's not going to be a cool chip, and I don't think many of the other ones down the stack are going to be either.
Keep up the great
Thank you very
work
much.
of the
Ask so
channel.
Thanks, man. But yeah, so that would be my main concern is how much cooling do you need to get the performance that they're quoting there. Yeah. Intel will probably end up crushing AMD with some power efficient and cool stuff again. From what I've seen of their roadmap, I think that might be optimistic. They are potentially going to be moving to their own 10nm enhanced superfin node, which is ever so slightly better in peak density than AMD's current TSMC 7nm node. So they will gain back more efficiency, and they're intending on doing a big little core design. Intel hybrid technologies, I think is what they call it. But so up to 8 Gracemont low power, high efficiency cores, and then up to 8 what they call Sunny Cove. Is there or Golden Cove cores, because the current ones are Sunny Cove, but those are backported to 40nm. So that combination will allow for some, especially on the low power, ultra slim form factor market, that will allow them some benefits. But AMD is then moving to 5nm, TSMC's 5nm, which is theoretically 71% more peak density improvement. So they will get even better power efficiency than they already have. And based on the current core designs, even if you were to, say 20% more efficiency from going to 10nm, that's still not even matching AMD's current. So it will be interesting to see once those are out. But I think that prediction might be a bit optimistic currently. Can we change the graphics card on a Lenovo laptop? No is the answer. Unfortunately, laptops really don't have upgradable GPUs, except for some very rare cases, and even those, the support for those MXM modules ran out before it began. So no is the answer. Hello, Budget Bench. How you doing? Also, hello, Stephen. Welcome to the Money Man. I'm still on their 4th gen 4-core 8 thread. Nice. Think the NVIDIA ARM acquisition will go through to pave the way for an NVIDIA CPU. So my understanding is that NVIDIA are more likely to utilize the ARM acquisition for their own to manufacture CPUs, but from a server space, so that they can. They already sell entire servers, the grid servers and stuff, with NVIDIA GPUs. If they could then sell a 1000-core whatever ARM-based CPU that draws next to no power, that can have massive memory mapping capabilities, that in their own server that they could sell as an entire unit would rake in way more cash than selling desktop CPUs generally would. So it's likely that that's the case. It is my general understanding at this point in time that they are not looking to produce consumer CPUs as of yet. Although, to be fair, they do already produce CPUs. There are Tegra chips that the Nintendo Switch runs off. That's an SoC. So that has an NVIDIA CPU on board as well as an NVIDIA graphics card. It's already difficult to cool top CPUs under high load. Will be even more difficult with 5nm, I assume. So it kind of goes the other way. The smaller the process node, it's kind of a balance. The smaller the process node, the more efficient the transistors generally are. So that should mean better power efficiency. The downside is that you also then have more higher density, which then means that you have a problem of sucking away that much heat from such a small space. So the laws of thermodynamics aren't in your favor. Yeah. Also, hello Ian. And yeah, NVIDIA's looking for HPC solutions, not consumer anything. This is what I was suggesting. Mark, interestingly, on the AMD side of things, even with the 1550X, it only draws about 142 watts something under full load. So that's basically the same as the new 11400F, which drew 130 watts peak in my testing. So it's not as big a deal. Obviously, when you move up to 64 core Threadrippers, yeah, that's 300-400 watts or so. But it's also 64 cores and massive. Where's a good place to get a GPU? Unfortunately, there isn't really one right now. Generally, jump in the queues and wait, unfortunately. 70 to 80 pound headset recommendations. Interesting. Honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I don't tend to review that many headsets, I'm afraid. I'd be lying if I had a good answer for you. Can't think of anything for that sort of price. Corsair Void? I have Vega 8 integrated graphics. Can I play GTA 5? Maybe at 720p low. I saw 7nm versus 14nm, and 7nm has smaller features, but the transistors were about the same size as 14. So I believe it depends on where you're looking in the chip, but as Dr. Ian pointed out, there is the estimated peak densities are a good bit, let's say, higher in 7nm. I interviewed Jim Keller. He's a mad lad. Nice. I saw your poll for questions. I'll be interested to watch the video when it's out. Yeah, HyperX Cloud. That's probably a good shout. I don't have one, which is probably why it doesn't spring to mind. Also, Spencer, since you're a car person, what's your opinion on cars with cars and digital cockpits? Are you for them, or do you prefer traditional dials? So, from an enthusiast perspective, traditional dials are obviously very cool. You know, having that physical needle sweeping around your dash is great. From an everyday perspective, I think I would prefer a digital dash because it affords you a lot more features and capabilities. like in a daily driver where I'm just trundling around town, I don't really care what my engine RPM is, and I can hear it anyway. So if I think that I need to change gear, manually, I can just downshift with the paddles or with shifter, and it would that would be fine. But the ability to have things like Android Auto or Apple CarPlay and have your maps not on your screen off to the side but directly in your gauge cluster, and that's fine. That's a really nice feature that I like quite a lot. And I'll be honest, if I'm driving my car, I only look at the digital screen in the middle. I do have two physical gauges for engine RPM and speed, but unless I'm driving it hard, I'm going to a track day in a bit, so I will be looking at it there. But unless I'm driving it hard, I never look at my speedo because I've got a digital one in the middle. That's pretty much all I look at. So yeah, I think in a daily driver I'd prefer a TFT display as they put it, which is so weird. But yeah, probably. And yeah, funny thing is that the screen is cheaper than the dials, but Audi is charging extra for the screen. Yeah. Typical car things. BMW wants to charge you a monthly subscription so that your heated seats and active headlights still work. You want a car that has a mechanical rev counter, not a meter, a counter. It counts your total rev since it was built. Do you know that should be quite cool. Is a 1080, I'm assuming GTX 1080, good for streaming and Warzone at the same time with the Ryzen 3700X? Yes, I think so. It's what you call it? That should be fine. You can use the NVENC encoder to encode your stream for that, and not have much problem there. So yeah, that should be fine. When the external hard drive is beeping, does that mean something is stuck? Depends. Most external hard drives tend to not have what you call it? Little buzzers on them these days. But yeah. Which laptop to use? None really. I have a desktop, so I don't travel, so I don't need a laptop. If I was going to use one, at the moment, the HP Omen one that I have, the Omen 15 with the Ryzen 4800H and a 2060 is probably the one I would use. But that's because I have that. If I was going to buy one as my main machine, the Asus Strix G15 with the new Ryzen 5700 or whatever it is, or the Acer Triton 300, Triton 500, one of those ones. Shade, hello. Unfortunately, I'm more of a PC man than a MacBook man. And I literally don't own an Apple device at all. So it's difficult. You're saying you downloaded the Razer drive from Mac and now the laptop can't load when I sign in. The Macs will have a recovery mode that you can potentially enter, some sort of safe mode, I assume, but that does sound like Razer. Yeah. But sorry, I can't be more help. Chat, if you have any suggestions, feel free to provide. Seems a little random. How well do you know Plex server? Reasonably, I do use it. Mark says use MB instead. Fair. And apparently Spencer says Jellyfin is better than all of them. Nice. What is your concern, Tom? Matrox has the best PGA. Nice, nice. Do you use caffeine during the day to stay awake and melatonin at night because you can't sleep? I don't. I do take caffeine for the ADHD. It's a stimulant which helps me not just sit and be depressed all day. Every now and again, but I do sleep pretty well. I just don't sleep until late. I think I go to sleep for between 1 and 2 and then get up at 9 or 10. Well, 8, 9, 10 depending on however, but yeah. Mac with Razor, take it to a Genius Bar, $1,700 fix. Yeah, I think that's called buy a new one. What do you do for a living? This! I'm a YouTuber! I know, great, right? But yeah, I make tech YouTube videos. And occasionally car ones too. Check them out. Do you know how to do a full rescan of the libraries? I have a video file that appears in every folder, but it's actually in one location. I know that you can rescan if you go to the that library menu, right click and rescan media. Otherwise, technically speaking, you can move everything out and then move everything out of the folder that it's checking, then move it back in, or create a dummy folder and then move your files to the new folder. But yeah, off the top of my head, that's it. You can manually rescan, or start messing with the folders. Our Andy is so northern, he's going to be the next Brian Cooley of CNET. Oh yeah, CNET on cars is great. I don't know what you're talking about. I should probably get a driver's license, but it's expensive here in Germany. Yeah, and I believe that your TÜV inspections are much more serious than our MOTs. Yeah, apparently that's more tough too. Huh, tough, TÜV. Nice. But yeah, that. Is a 1050 Ti good for streaming? Well, that's a very different card, and that's a lot less good. If you're playing at what do you call it, 1080p, you probably want low settings. Otherwise, you'll want 720p and medium or higher settings. Where do you get this much computer knowledge? Well, I don't hold a candle to Mr. Tech Potato here. But no, I've just been making tech videos for it'll be 10 years next year. And I was a tech nerd well before that. So just being in the tech world for 10 years. Is a Celeron 1 GHz 1 core worth of money only if it's free? The ADA situation? What do you mean ADA? Treat me like an idiot, because I am one. Your shirt looks like you it looks like you have a shirt with Venom in the middle of your PC components. Nah, I mean maybe this bit, I think is probably what you mean. But yeah, I drew all of these in Photoshop, and it's great, and you should buy one. It's on the merch store, and I'm now basically not wearing a t-shirt. Honor Mutlu, I can't read. But fair. I will indeed. ADA is like oh right, okay. Gotcha. Fair. There's so many damn cryptos that it's very difficult to track. And yeah. It's insane. And yes, 10 years, which is dumb. I started in February 2012. Well, technically the first video was uploaded in March 2012, but yeah, 10 years next year. Oof. And I was but a little baby, and I still am compared to most of you. Hello, Essentialist. How you doing, man? Better late than ever. I uninstalled Warzone a month ago. Since then, I've been playing the crypto game. Nice, nice. It's for me. I'm not the sort of person who would ever put enough money into anything like that to then ever get, like the sort of people who would put YOLO 10 grand into something and then it blows up and they have £1 million or dollars, whatever. That is not me. And it's the exchange fees bite so hard that the price difference you need to make any profit on that just ends up not being worth it for me personally. But yeah, fair enough. How many hours a day do you spend learning versus working? I have many mental health problems, so kind of depends on the day. Generally speaking, I'm surviving most days rather than doing anything in particular. But yeah, mostly I tend to learn more from projects. So if I want to do a video on something, I can focus on going away and doing research. Whereas from a day-to-day perspective, I don't tend to sit and read things. Well, ADHD. I don't have the attention span. So yeah. If you make enough for a 765 LT, you can test it in your channel. Thanks, nice. I've driven a 570S and that was great, so I can only imagine how great a 765 LT would be. Do you know what? I'd even take a 675 LT. Do you know, I'd settle for that. But yeah, best of luck. I'm just about surviving, says the guy pumping it. Well, see, the problem is that if I don't... So today, right? I have my calendar. So this week, I finished editing the Zoe review on Monday morning. I wrote a sponsored video script, and I think I did a full day of benchmarking. And then the next day I filmed and edited that video. I also filmed and edited a second video. I had the Zoe collected Wednesday. What else did I do? I did. So I finished some other bits. I edited some more things, and I was kind of not really doing much throughout the day, which is kind of the problem. And then today, I started a keyword review. Also started benchmarking a system. I did a pre-roll and a giveaway, which is coming up on the weekend. So stick around for that if you want a free monitor. But I still spent most of the day bored out of my mind and unable to do anything, like unable to bring myself to finish the keyboard review or do anything other than sit and be depressed. So if I don't have stuff to do, it is a big problem for me. But if I have too much to do, it's also a big problem for me. So it's a very fine balance of basically being miserable either way. I've only recently, as in 2 months ago, had an official diagnosis of ADHD. So I'm still waiting on being given any medication. So that's it so far. I'm self-medicating with caffeine every now and again, which does help me a bit, but I'm not yet. I have not been able to get prescription medications as of yet. Although my partner is on the prescription medications, and her experience is generally that they help a lot for giving back the sort of drive and ability to actually get up and do things. But once they drop off, that's it. You're done for the day. And also it can kind of come in bursts, so it can be, it's slightly better throughout the day, but then one day for 2 hours she'll be hyper productive, do everything she wanted to do in the entire week in 2 hours, and then do absolutely nothing for another week instead. So it can vary week to week and day to day. When is the next installment of Andy's Expert Carpentry Corner going live? Do I have? I'm doing a custom keyboard which will involve painting, so you'll see I'm gonna build a little painting stand for it, so you'll see some of that action. But a while yet, I think. Yeah, Chris does still love his free stuff. And yes, I have 2 AOC 24 GTU monitors to give away. That will start at the weekend. I filmed a little promo show starter video for that. So that will go live on probably Saturday evening. Yeah, and yeah, that PC that's turned off is Chris's that I'm doing a video on. Oh gosh, it's 9 o'clock. Well, that went fast. Well. Yes, see you, Mark. I catch there. That's a good point to jump off anyway. Hold on, Antonio's here. Hardware better support for Autodesk Fusion. Generally speaking, I think NVIDIA GPUs still have a benefit. Although I think Ryzen CPUs are now performant enough that it's worth it. So I think AMD CPU, NVIDIA GPU is probably a good shout. Unless Fusion 360 has any specific benefits of going with Intel instead. Right, I will leave you guys with that. Thank you very much for watching. As always, there are plenty of links in the description if you want to support my idiocy and me making these videos. Just subscribe if you haven't already. Not quite sure why you wouldn't be. And yeah, these are every Thursday night, 8 PM UK time, so if you want to watch, come back next week, feel free. Otherwise, catch you there. See you guys.